Welcome to the Alan Miles Show with me, Alan Miles, and today I'm joined by Hernan Vazquez, the owner of the Rapid Scale Framework and a paid media expert. Great to have you.
Thank you, man. It's good that we can finally do this. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invite. I'm honored. Thank you.
No, it's great to have you here. It's really good to have you here. For those of you that don't know Hernan, I've known Hernan for a little while, and he's someone who I think really stands out in the marketplace when it comes to paid ads, particularly in the low ticket or self-liquidating offer area. And it's something that, for me, one of the things that I find really refreshing is that you're just honest about stuff. And I think in the online space, sometimes that can be quite a rare commodity. So for those people who don't know you, like, say a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you get into ads? Those kind of things.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from Argentina, so you will see me drinking this thing. This is mate. I'm not smoking anything. You know, some people tell me, hey, why aren't you smoking? This is like a tea. Okay, we drink it all the time in Argentina. So anyways, I'm from Argentina. I'm from Buenos Aires. And yeah, dude, I don't know. I've been doing this for like 15 years now. And originally I started, I think like every one of us, that we started, that we generally start on the organic side of things. My first like approach to marketing was SEO. Right? So I had a kind of a little bit of a digital marketing agency in Argentina doing SEO, and you know, it was a lot of fun. But then also at some point I started meeting people that had other agencies online and whatnot. This was like, I don't know, probably 12 years ago, right? Like the working from home wasn't really a thing, and I met these folks, and they were also running doing SEO for other people. So we decided to show other agency owners how to do SEO for, you know, how we were doing SEO for our clients. And we put together this little course. It was really cool. You know, this was back in the day when ClickFunnels was not a thing, and you had to duct tape stuff together with WordPress and this and that, the other thing, right? But we put together this little course, and of course we did SEO to sell the course, but then we realized that it will take us a long time, right? So we were like, okay, we want to start doing some paid ads, but we were five partners, no one knew how to run ads at that point. Like, we would run maybe some Google ads for our own clients and whatnot. So I decided to give it a go. And this was like probably, like, again, 10 years ago. And since then, I'm like, wow, this is great. This is cool. I really like the speed. I really like how you can kind of control the traffic. Of course, it's not perfect. It has a lot of downsides, but it also has a lot of upsides as well. And that, you know, that first experience, you know, kind of put me into that path of running ads, and I've been doing it full time ever since. So it's been super fun.
Okay, awesome. So for those that don't know, obviously low ticket is a low cost product. A self-liquidating offer is obviously an offer that pays for itself, self-liquidates. Why do you like those so much?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So throughout my career, I run ads for pretty much any kind of industry and any kind of funnel and marketing process and sales process that you can think of, right? Like, we generated leads for financial advisors all the way up to doctors, to webinars and whatnot. And at some point, I had the privilege, the honor of working with Frank Kern, right, as his right-hand man. And for that was the thing that lasted for around 4 years. And that was my first, like, exposure to low-ticket offers, right? And because one day, like, we were just like hanging out and doing our thing, and then he said something to me like, what if we kept on advertising? We were running a lot of ads at the moment, but we didn't pay for any of these leads and buyers that we're generating. And I was like, Frank, are you drinking again? And turns out that he was, but that's, you know, besides the point. He was actually right, and he actually already knew how to do this. So, you know, so we actually implemented this thing. And I remember that we launched this book. He had a book. He had many books, right? He had written many books, but he had this book that was called How to Get Consulting Clients Fast. It was a booklet. It was a PDF book and whatnot. And we sold it from ads from, like, I think $4.95, right? And then people bought the book, right? And then we had some other offers throughout the funnel. You know, some of those are called order bumps, as you know, and upsells and whatnot. So we had some other offers. And then at the end of the day, the funny part was that we spent $100 today And at the end of the day, we made $100 back at the end of that day. And that was, for me, it was unheard of. For me, it was always like, okay, let's generate all of these leads. Let's put all of these people on the calendar. Let's follow up with them. And then eventually, if they hop on a call with us, we close them. We have a positive ROI, right? That was kind of the thing that we were doing and the thing that most people do. But with low ticket offers, that really, showed me that what was possible, because we were generating, and some days we would spend, let's say, $1,000 on ads that day, and we would make $2,000 that day, right? Not to mention the fact that we were getting all of these leads, and most importantly, all of these buyers into our ecosystem, right? That then we could sell them something else. And then I realized, then I went on to work with some other like really famous people and people that are really well known in the digital marketing community, and I realized that anyone in the digital marketing space, they have some sort of low ticket offer. It could be a book funnel, it could be, a workshop, it could be a paid presentation. Like anyone is actually running some sort of cheap, quote unquote, or inexpensive offer first to kind of get people to test the waters, but also they are able to liquidate, they're able to make all of their money back or most of their money back as fast as possible. And then from there on out, I'm like, this is great, I'm hooked. I actually wrote a book about it, and I've been running a lot of low ticket offers since then, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that obviously when it's explained, I think low ticket, obviously I run low ticket offers myself, and that's kind of how we came to know each other, through a mutual connection. And I think the thing for me that I see with a lot of people, it seems like we have in the low ticket space, or in the online coaching space, when people start looking at low ticket and they're new to it, it seems like people fragment into one of a couple of groups, maybe 3 groups. You've got the first group of my buyer won't buy a low ticket because the information there is not valuable enough, blah, blah, blah. Like you've got that group of people. Then you've got the middle group of people who are low ticket offer saying, great, that means I never have to do a sales call or a high ticket sale ever again. I can just sell low ticket and I'll become a millionaire if I sell 1 million of them, not understanding the liquidation component. And then you have people who use it as it's intended and obviously have a much more extensive back end kind of mapped out. Why do you think, and maybe you don't know, I don't know, but why do you think people get confused with this process with low ticket, where they think either their buyer isn't in that world, they don't understand that a premium buyer will go looking for information, just because like a premium buyer watches YouTube videos which are free, so like they're looking for a solution? And why do you also think that people get confused and think that the low ticket offer can replace their entire business? Like, talk me through your thoughts around, because you obviously have exposure to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, those are great thoughts, and I never thought about it like that, but I think that the 3 camps, theory works really well, because that's exactly what I'm also seeing on my end. I coach a lot of people on low ticket offers. I have low ticket products that teach people on how to do low ticket offers. I've written a book, it's called Low Ticket Profits, and I sell it as a low ticket offer, right? So it's like, hey, this works because you bought the thing, and now we're having a conversation on the phone. But I think that there's a couple things. The first one is that what you said, the first myth that I always try to kind of reverse is that cheap buyers don't buy expensive stuff, right? Like, or in other words, low ticket buyers don't buy expensive things. Or another thing that is really common is like, my audience is too busy to consume information, right? And you said it beautifully, is that people are still listening to podcasts. Like we have, I don't know, Joe Rogan doing 3-hour-long podcasts, right? So people are still consuming information. But what I really like to do with low ticket offers, what I really tell people to do in my courses and my communities and everything, is you want to try and give people a quick win as fast as humanly possible, right? And when I say quick win, it could be awareness, it could be, it could be learning how to do a tiny little thing in a different way. And when I say as quick or as fast as humanly possible, that depends on your audience, right? Because if you're a fitness coach, you cannot tell people that they're going to lose 10 pounds in 5 minutes, but you can say you're going to lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks, right? Which is fast, right, for a fitness coach. So really, you need to adapt this to your audience. But the main point is that when you are running cold advertising. So people that do not know who you are, they have not heard about you, your brand, and thus they do not know you, they do not like you, they do not trust you just because they haven't seen you before, right? What happens when you run these type of ads, if somebody comes in and they give you $7 and you give them a quick win, 3 magical things happen, right? The first one is that they trust you all of a sudden because lo and behold, they apply this little thing and they had a win, right? Number one. Number two, they trust your process that is different enough from the stuff that they can go and watch on YouTube, right? Because let's be honest, anyone can go to YouTube and learn anything, but each of us have a specific process. So they trust that process. And number 3, which you needed equally, is that they trust themselves that they can do it. And you need those 3 things in order for people to ascend, right? To have a conversation and then people wanting to work with you at a deeper level. So I think that when people are saying, oh, low ticket buyers don't really ascend, or people that consume information, they don't really move forward, it really depends on how you're positioning that piece of content that you're selling, right? It's really depending on that one thing. And then people that say that they're going to sell low ticket offers and they're going to become millionaires, they haven't been really keeping up to date with the costs of advertising, right? Which has been going up pretty consistently. So that's the other thing. It's like low ticket, they're great, they're amazing tools, but it's not an end-all be-all, right? You can build communities, you can build pretty much whatever you want, like SaaS businesses. Even like my agency, before I exited my agency, we were growing on the back of a low-ticket offer, right? So service businesses, even local businesses, e-com businesses, they can all grow on the back of a low-ticket offer. But at the end of the day, that's not the main thing that you're selling. That's not going to put money in your pocket. That will allow you to liquidate or get customers for as close to free as possible, which is further ahead than 99.9% of the businesses out there. So that's how I think about those 2 things.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that it's that misunderstanding that if you've run your business organically up till this point and you are essentially running at almost 100% profit because it's just sweat equity that you're putting in with your lead generation, just because you generate $1 million in low ticket sales doesn't mean you got $1 million in your bank. You've got probably 0 in your bank because it's just gone through the machine. And I think that it's helping people to understand that piece. The thing that I think is probably for anyone who's like, okay, well, low ticket offers, that sounds like could be a viable option. I think one of the big stumbling blocks is them understanding what a product should be. Because I think when you've got someone who's an expert in their space, they're the things that stimulate them and that they think are of interest are far above the level and the simplicity to get that quick win. Do you have any kind of like hacks or tips or thoughts around how somebody, if they are an expert in their space, can make sure that they have the right framework there to try and find an initial low ticket product?
No, that's a great question. And I think that's the number one question that I get. It's like, okay, I want to do a low ticket funnel. What do I sell, right? The second biggest question that I get is like, okay, I have this thing now. How do I get traffic to it? Or how do I run ads to that, right? Like that's the second biggest thing. But I like to look at low ticket offers under 2 kind of lenses, right? The first one is, and it's funny because yesterday I did a workshop specifically on upsells, right? What to upsell, how to position. I'm happy to give it to you for your audience. It's all about upsells, and it was really, really good. But it all starts with the back end. It all starts with what are we really selling, right? What is your main thing? What is your main offer? Who do you help? What's the transformation, and who do you want to attract? Because probably they have really specific, well, not probably, but surely they have really specific challenges, and they have really specific things that they're going through, right? That's the first exercise that I get people to do when they want to do a low ticket offer. Because some of my students will come and tell me, well, I help businesses make more money, and there are businesses between 1 and 50 million. And I'm like, hold up, right? The difference, the challenges that $1 million business is going through are way different than a $50 million business, right? So we need to pick and choose who you really want to attract. That's the first thing. That's the number one thing that, even if you launch a low ticket offer and it's successful and people want it and they are buying it, you might hate the people that are coming through that funnel, right? Because they're not aligned with what you're trying to do. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing, which I kind of go through with my students, which is, it's really, really cool. It's a really cool exercise. And I realized this when I was working with Dan Henry back in the day. So I run ads for Dan Henry. We're good friends, and I run a lot of his ads for a long time. And I realized that I went through his process, or we put together a couple of low-ticket offers. In a nutshell, he was selling a $97 challenge, right? He did a challenge every single month, and he was selling this $97 challenge, and then he had a high-ticket offer on the back end after the challenge. But it was getting more and more expensive to get people to the challenge, right? So we decided to put together a low-ticket offer for him, right? And I went into his library. That's something that I really like to do, is to dive into the library of stuff that you already have created. And he gave me 2 books to sell, right? One of those books was his New York Times bestseller, Amazon bestseller, and amazing book, which was called Digital Millionaire Secrets, right? It was a book that he wrote on his journey, and it was an amazing book. Lots of value on that book. It was called Digital Millionaire Secrets. And we put that out there. We created the funnel, the landing pages, and all that, and we put that out there. And then he also gave me this other booklet, right? It was kind of an afterthought, something that he had there in his library. It was called Big Fat Hooks, 297 hooks that sell. That was the thing, right? That was the name of that booklet. So we tested both. We actually put them both to the test. We ran ads to both of them. And after a while, Big Fat Hooks blew it out of the water. Like, we were getting tons of sales every single day. Digital Millionaire Secrets, even if it was more, I want to say, mature or a higher quality product, it was really hard to sell, right? It was an amazing book, but for cold traffic, the value proposition, the definition of what the benefit was not as clear as the 297 hooks that sell, right? So it was crystal clear. So then I started thinking, what's the main difference between these 2 books, right? And of course, we stopped Digital Millionaire Secrets and we scaled Big Fat Hooks, and that's how we got people into his challenge at a way better cost than running traffic directly to the challenge. And I started thinking, and then I realized that there's 2 types of offers, 2 types of low-ticket offers. There are strategic offers, and there are tactical offers. So let me break it down real quick. Strategic offers basically mean that, I don't know, I can teach you how to run profitable Facebook ads from A to Z, 0 to 10. I can show you everything that there is to know for you to run profitable Facebook ads, right? And an expert could do the same. I could teach you everything that I know about this one specific topic. The reality is that's kind of the first thing that people default to. I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this course, and I'm going to do these 10 modules and all of these different things. That's a strategic offer, because it has many steps, right? You need to do this, and then you need to do this, and then you need to do this. But then there's these tactical offers that are, for example, instead of showing you, here's how to run profitable Facebook ads, I can show you how to fix your pixel in 10 minutes. That's a tiny sliver of the whole system. I can show you how to write copy for your ads. That's really effective. That's another tiny sliver. I can show you how to create images that work really, really well, right? So those are little tiny parts. Those are tactical offers that people can consume. They can go through the process, and then lo and behold, 20 minutes later, their pixel works finally, right? After a lot of struggle. Or their ads work really, really well, just after a little thing. So they launched those ads, and lo and behold, those ads work better than what they were doing before. So that's the way that I think about it. It's like the time of selling like big courses, and I know it, like you want to overwhelm people or wow people with value and whatnot, and that is fine. But the more tactical you can become with your front-end offer, just show them these pieces that they can do in like a day or in an afternoon or in a week, and then boom, all of a sudden they got a win, and now they want more. So that kind of serves as a framework, those 2 things, right? Who do you want to attract in the back end into your high-ticket program, but also what you can show them that's a tiny piece of the whole puzzle that will give them a win, and then all of a sudden they want more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's the piece that think you touched on it just there. A lot of people want to overwhelm and demonstrate their level of knowledge by having this big course. And I think in my mind, the way I look at it is like, when it comes to running these types of products and services and ads, you just need to park your ego, and you need to basically be able to so when I was coming up with my ideas, I literally just talked back and forth with AI to get my brain going. And I was looking for a small nugget, a tactical offer. And it's almost like that throwaway thing that if somebody came to you who knew you, because that's your Facebook ads is your area of expertise, and they were like, how do I set up my pixel? And you're like, oh, just go here, 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 and here. To you, it's a nothing thing. But to the person who's been sat there for 9 hours trying to figure it out, they're like, they see the ad and they're like, oh my God, this solves my problems and it's $10, I'll buy it. And it's that moment that really moves the needle for people. And I think that helping people understand that piece is such an important part, because experts have got so much amazing knowledge. And I think that, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of experts out there who have become experts in an effort to almost justify themselves. They have a low level of self-worth. So it's this piece of, I have to overserve. And I think that it's learning to say you actually need less. And the minute you started talking about that Dan Henry story, and you said about the hooks, I was like, you can almost guarantee it's going to be the hooks thing that would have performed. And it's almost like the identity between a warm offer, because obviously anyone who knew Dan Henry would go and buy his book. But anyone who doesn't know him, it doesn't matter if you don't know him, because you want the outcome of that tactical piece. And that's the piece that when most of us don't have personal brands, it allows you to get your expertise in somebody's hands really quickly to move them forward. So yeah. I'm interested then, because everything you've explained so far, I could quite imagine if you're not used to this world, you're like, that sounds like an awful lot of work, and I don't know how I'm going to make these ads and do all these things. Where does AI sit in this process for you? How much do you lean on AI? And I want to talk about how you feel about what people refer to as AI slop, but just talk me through, how do you use AI in these processes, first of all?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we're using AI extensively, pretty much at any point of the funnel at this point. Anywhere from creating the offer, and of course the offer needs to be good. You cannot really outsource this to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you fancy these days. I'm working a lot with Hermes or however you want to call it these days, right? And it's great, but you cannot really outsource the thinking and the actual tactical offer to these AI tools, right? Because they are generally trained, unless you're doing a good job with your AI and you know what you're doing, they're generally trained on a really generic body of knowledge, right? So in order to make it yours, you need to fit it your frameworks and your way of doing things. And as Todd Brown will say, your unique mechanism, right? The way you do things. I think that's the key and that's the edge. That's why when you go to ChatGPT and you tell it, hey, write a piece of copy for this offer, it generally sucks, right? But if you give it enough feedback and framework on how you like things to work, then it gets better, right? It gets decent. So I think that's the first piece, is that it's not as easy as, oh yeah, I'm just gonna build all of this thing with AI. There's some people doing that. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine literally before jumping on with you, and he was like, dude, we have these people copying, literally copying, ripping our offers off, and then they're just selling the same stuff that we're doing on a slightly different domain. And there's a whole slew of those things, because with AI, you can quote unquote funnel hack a lot faster, right? But we use AI extensively. The first thing that you need to put your input on is, what is that tactical win? What are you going to help people do that's going to be simple, that's going to be applicable? And the good news about that is that what you said, you don't need a personal brand. I don't even show my face on most of my ads, right? Once somebody is on my ecosystem, then yeah, they start seeing pictures of me, videos of me speaking on stage and all that stuff. But at the beginning, I always make it about the offer. My ads are super simple. I call them ugly ads. I'm getting a little bit known as the ugly ads guy, right, in a sense, because we also build those ads with ChatGPT or Gemini. We give it our prompts and whatnot. So you need to understand that one thing. Once you understand that one thing that you want to, that one win that you want to get people to, then you can use AI to feed your entire system and all of that. If you want to write emails with it, if you want to, create the copy with it, we're going all the way to just like literally creating the whole funnels with AI these days, right? Which with Claude Code or Manus, it's really easy to just put these funnels together. So you don't need, a funnel builder and whatnot. You just need a place to send emails from. But it's getting easier. But that doesn't mean that you just need to be lazy and let it take the wheel on the actual thinking. That's the main part. Do not outsource the thinking, because at the end of the day, you are the expert. You are the person that knows if they unlock this thing, then everything else becomes easier. So that's where you come in. And then the rest, image ads. I'm a big fan of image ads. Copy on the ads and all of that. Yeah, we use a lot of AI to actually make this all happen a lot faster.
I think that's been the thing for me, was kind of moving into the ad space. I was a little bit, I don't particularly like making content. I make a fair amount, but I don't enjoy it that much. And I've always been, I'm a business owner first, a content creator second. I have no interest in being an influencer. It's a face for radio, so not for reels, but it is what it is. So for me, seeing all of these things being created by AI, it really kind of aligned with me, definitely, from the perspective of the quicker you can move, like you say, as long as you keep hold of the thinking piece, the quicker you can move through the phases and the less friction you put in the way. So having a minimal viable landing page whilst you're testing, getting your ads out as quickly as possible and testing. And I think that's the key thing, is that word testing is something that I think gets so overlooked, because people go, well, I don't like how that page looks. It's like, but yeah, buddy, you're not the one buying it, so it doesn't matter what you think. Go test it. And I think that the minute it comes back to ego, doesn't it? The minute you can park your ego and actually just say, well, I'm going to test this really ugly ad and this really ugly page because I'm inquisitive and I want to understand, what does the marketplace think of it? And I think more often than not, it's those moments that you get surprised and the marketplace really liked it. And it's the same when you see with organic content. People will film a reel in a studio with a nice background and it will get 50 views. They go film a reel with no mic in their car and it's the one that goes viral every time. And I think it's that piece of just knowing and leaning into, it's better to test 100 things in the time it took you to get one perfect piece of content than having that one piece. And the AI slop thing is something that you see a lot. It's like the new word that gets thrown around a lot. And I think that when you look at content creators, not content creators, people who aren't content creators but want to make content, I think if we look at how far content has come over the last couple of years, yes, AI can generate things, and ChatGPT is not going to give you probably the best caption in the world or whatever. But when you compared it to what Deirdre was writing 9 months ago herself, that was also absolutely horrific because she didn't understand how to film a video, how to write content, how to use Canva, and you had some janky looking graphic that it took her 9 hours to create in Canva, whereas ChatGPT can now create an actually pretty good image at this point. What are your thoughts around the actual usage of AI in content? What do you like and what do you dislike? And what's your take on the whole AI slop piece?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And I think it all goes back to how much you train AI to sound like you, right? How much you train AI to sound like you. I think that's the key piece, right? Because again, these models out of the box, they're really good for some things, but they're really, really bad at some other things, right? And again, for example, it's funny. I have this conversation with my students, and it's like, what do you think about this campaign? I talked to Claude about this campaign, and he told me that it has a really high CPM and a really low click-through rate, right? So should I can everything and look at their cost per sale, and it's crushing. So I think that we are maybe not that far off, but we're pretty far off for it to actually, have criteria of what actually matters. And that comes with experience. Like what you said, I used to spend so much time obsessing about the perfect logo, right? Or here's another example. I would wake up one day with this amazing idea for a course or for a program, right? And then I would spend probably 6 to 8 weeks developing the program, developing the product, right? And going through the different things and recording the videos and making sure that the members area looked amazing, and then the logo, and then the color, and then all of those things. And then I turn around and then I put it out in the market and nobody wanted it, right? And I remember this really funny story when I was working as the marketing director for Grant Cardone as one of his divisions. And I remember this is a really funny story because we were there just trying to figure out a new offer for one of our divisions. So I was there, his head of marketing for another division was there, his CMO was there, and we were kind of trying to figure out all of this nerdy marketing talk that we were having about launching this thing and how it should look like and what would be the best offer. So Grant came in. And he was always traveling, so we didn't get to see him much. But then one day he was, on site, and then he came in. He kind of sat down there, and while we were having this conversation, he was there on his phone and whatnot. And then at some point he stands up and he says, "Wait a second, guys!" And he goes live on Instagram, right? Of course, we're talking about Grant Cardone. We're talking that he has a huge, audience. You might like him, you might not like him, but he has a huge audience. So he goes live on Instagram. And he starts talking about the things that we were talking. It's like, hey guys, we're thinking about doing this boot camp, to get business owners to do this thing and to do this other thing. What do you guys think? Would you guys want it? And people started interacting with that, right? It was like, yeah, well, that would be great. That would be cool. That would be awesome, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, okay, give me a second. So he asked his CMO at the time, hey, could you put together a really quick payment link to this thing that we haven't even created, right? And he was like, listen, we haven't created the offer. We're thinking about it. We're just trying to see if you guys would like it. Here's a link to pay, right? And you're going to lock in an early bird price because we haven't developed the thing, right? You're going to get this bonus and this bonus and this other bonus if you jump in right now before we even develop the whole thing. And then we check on Stripe like 5 seconds later and boom, 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 the sales starts coming in, right? For a product or an offer that we haven't even created yet. It was an idea. So he was like, thank you guys. I'll talk to you guys soon. We're going to develop this because there's market validation here. We're going to develop this. Boom. He hands up and he's like, okay, now go build because we clearly validated this offer with live payments on the fly, right? And I started thinking, wow, that is a really genius move. And then I realized that a lot of people do that with their audiences and even with ads, right? Like you don't need, that's the good news is that you don't need to have like, a big audience to do this. You can run some ads to an ugly landing page and then you can validate an offer before you even build the offer, right? So what if you could launch a lot of offers, right, that, again, could not be your life's work initially. Then once you get it validated, then you build the whole thing, then you make it pretty. But now you have validation, and not people just saying, oh, yeah, I want it, but people actually voting with their wallets. So that's how I develop a whole process on validating offers, which is the first thing that my students go through if they don't have a low-ticket offer and all of that. But I think that on that case, if you think about it, AI slop, without being a lot of AI slop or moving fast, it's the right thing to do because, again, it's all about the offer. And you know this. On low-ticket offers, 80% of the success of your low-ticket funnel hinges on that one offer. If you make it sexy enough so that a random stranger from the internet will click on an ad and they'll buy, then that's 80% of the battle right there, right? So I'm really adamant about that. And I'm adamant about, okay, you want to train these models to avoid AI slop as much as possible, but in a way, AI slop is not that bad if it allows you to move fast, and then you tweak, and then you refine, and then once you have market validation, product to market fit, then you take the time to actually train these models and make everything pretty. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it ties back to some of it. I always like to try and look at the human side of it, but it's that piece, isn't it, of people are afraid of being accused of making AI slop. For one reason, either they don't want to be disliked or it hurts their ego. Yeah, again, I think ego, even in very humble people, ego plays such a silent killer to so many great ideas. And I did quite a lot. I ended up working quite a lot with Grant Cardone, and that speed to lead, the whole pre-selling an offer, those components, I think for me, it was one of the things that so many people rag on him. Like you do literally either love the guy or you hate the guy. It seems there's nobody really in the middle. He is obviously like quite brash in his approach, but I think he's very genuine from what I see a lot of the time. And the thing for me more than anything is that it's that removal of friction. How quickly can I validate this offer? Like, and I for me, I always remember I was on a treadmill and I had an idea, and I had literally just come back from one of his boot camps, probably the boot camp that you were making the marketing stuff for. And I literally was just walking on the treadmill and I did exactly that. I just sent an email out to my list. I messaged all of my existing customers and I was like, do you want to buy this thing if I build it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, can I charge a card? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool, now I'm going to build the thing because I've charged it. Because there's such a big difference between somebody saying, yes, I'd be interested, and like, here's my MasterCard. Like it's two very different things. And I think that in my mind, I'm like, anything that moves me towards that outcome quicker, the better, because it's heartbreaking to see people spend, like you said, spending 8 months or 8 weeks or whatever building this incredible offer, and they are living under this false idea that if you build it, they will come. And all you become is the best kept secret in the world. You just need to get out there as quickly as possible. And more importantly, you need to fail as many times as possible, as quickly as possible, so that you can find your product if you're going to do it. So to talk a little bit more tangibly about things, let's say, for example, somebody gets to the point, they've got some kind of offer, they've got some kind of landing page, and they're going to go run their ads. They've got a handful of ads. What would you say is that initial conversion rate they should be looking at, and roughly what kind of test budget should somebody be spending?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when it comes to budget, I'm a believer, and this is something else that I learned working with these big names, is that they never stop advertising. Never. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in their business, it doesn't matter what's going on in their lives, like the advertising machine keeps on going. And I experienced this quite directly during the pandemic. You know, during the pandemic, a lot of businesses were actually pulling their advertising budgets back, right? They were actually, and that was, I think, the first time in my career when I saw CPMs and costs go down rather than up, right? So because we have a trend of CPMs and cost per click and cost per lead and cost per buyer going up, right? Because there's more advertisers and there's the same amount of eyeballs. So the costs are definitely going up. But that was the first time when I see advertising costs going down. And the guys that were, hearing this and on top of the pulse of the market, they actually doubled their advertising budgets because they were wanted to attract and acquire a lot of market share, right? So that's the one thing that I noticed there. So the point is that when you are trying to come up with a budget, with a testing budget, I would rather you spend less per day for a longer period of time than to burn out your marketing budget in a day, right? Especially if you're advertising on Meta. So the first time that you're testing a low ticket offer, this heavily depends on your niche, depends on who you're targeting. If you're targeting business owners in the US, it's one thing. If you're targeting, let's say, dog owners in a third world country, it's another thing, right? So it really depends on your niche. But what I can say about this, maybe it's you can get an offer validated in a week and $500, for example. $500 to $600 you can get in a week, and $500 you can get an offer validated. However, people will tell me, well, can I spend those $500 in a day? And yes, you can. Like, Meta will take your money. But also, something that happens with Meta is that Meta is a volatile platform. So you know it, you're advertising, I know it. We have great days, we have bad days, we have amazing days, we have really crappy days or weeks, because it's a volatile platform, right? But then when you take a step back, kind of, it's a lot like day trading, if you think about it. When you go into, I don't know, the price of Bitcoin, you see that it does this. But if you take a step back, it kind of normalizes a little bit, right? So that's the way I see Meta ads a lot. So it's generally a 7-day testing period, $500 to $600 to test a low ticket offer. And what I like to do is, and again, this depends on your market, but what I like to do is I like to run a minimum of 100 to 150 unique outbound clicks from Meta. So that's a column that you can add to your ads manager, right? Unique outbound clicks, because there's a lot of clicks on Meta. You have clicks in the ad, clicks to some other places, right? But unique outbound clicks are basically clicks that go from Meta out to your landing page, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to run anywhere between 100 to 150 unique outbound clicks. And then when it comes to targeting, I'm pretty broad with targeting. You know this already, like creative does a lot of the targeting this day and age for us, right? So we're pretty broad with targeting. With the creatives, the type of ads that I like to run is like really straight to the point. It's like, hey, do you want to fix your pixel? It's $7, click here, and you will fix your pixel in 20 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to do any like copywriting jujitsu, right? Or trying to emotionally connect with the audience. Like that's for a later stage, right? At the beginning, it's like, are you hungry? Do you want pizza? Here's pizza. Click pizza, get pizza, right? So that's kind of the congruency on the ad. Mm-hmm. And then after 100 to 150 unique outbound clicks, the bottom line of a benchmark that I like to see for a low ticket offer, the conversion rate, it's anywhere between 2.5% to 3%. So if you send 100 clicks to a landing page, you want to have 2 to 3 buyers. And again, we're talking about ugly ads to an ugly landing page, right? With no testimonials, no guarantee, no FAQs, like not of all of those little bells and whistles that will allow you to increase conversions. If you do that, and 2 to 3 people, maybe 4 people give you money, I consider, again, cold traffic, people that do not know who you are, I consider that offer validated, and then you start building. Then you make it prettier, then you build a funnel, then you add order bumps, upsells, all of that stuff, so you complete the funnel. That's kind of the first step, and those are the benchmarks that I like to have initially, right? Again, if we're looking at 100 to 150 unique outbound clicks, you pay roughly $4 to $5 per click. That's $500 to $700. If you're in the financial niche in the US, you might be paying $7 to $10 a click. If you're somewhere else, you might be paying $1 a click, right? So you need to adapt this to your niche and your audience and all of that stuff. But that kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect. And when I launch the campaigns, I generally leave them running for 7 days so that you account for this volatility that you will have. A lot of people launch their ads and then they say, oh, my ads do great, and then they die off, right? Mm-hmm. And then I ask them, okay, what are you doing? Well, I turned them off like the second day because I didn't get any sales. I spent $50, I didn't become a millionaire yet. Yeah. This doesn't work. Give me my money, right? Yeah. So I get that a lot. But you want to account for that volatility. I know that it's hard because you want to tweak stuff, but just launch the ads, put your hands in your pocket, let Meta do its thing, go touch some grass, whatever you have to do, right? And then you can come back. So that's my approach to testing offers.
I think it's real though, isn't it? That feeling of like, it's exactly the same as trading for anyone who's ever done day trading. You literally open the ticker and you just stare at it constantly, and then you feel like you should leave. And it's like, I think with me, when I started with ads, I basically just shut Ads Manager, didn't look at it until I knew I had to go into review everything. And I was like, whatever happened has happened. It's like walking into the Meta casino. I was willing to lose $500. Worst case, this has not worked at all. I'm not going to look at anything until it's done, because I know I'm the type of person at the beginning, you want it to work. So you're going to start trying to make changes, or you're going to start overthinking yourself and trying to read into data that's not there. And I think especially if you're someone who's new to these things, you take these big macro approaches of, well, Russell Brunson said XYZ with your ad spend and your clicks and whatever. I've spent $13 and my numbers don't look correct, so I should turn this off because, well, it won't scale. And you'll logic your way there, but it's like you're completely wrong. You don't have a big enough pool of data. And I think that's the piece that it is scary. Like, especially when you start scaling a budget. If you've never run ads, it's scary from the perspective of you want it to work. Like, you want that emotional investment of, I want this to grow and compound. But it's also scary of, what if it doesn't work? And I think you have to just get very used to being in. And I think this is, for me, why organic is such a key part of the journey for everybody, because you have to be very comfortable with knowing your business is run on data, not emotion. And going into ads with an emotionally volatile business owner is a recipe for disaster, I think.
I agree.
What do you think then? So let's say you've got an offer, it's proven, it's starting to work. You're going through these phases of making the landing page better, adding the OTOs, etc. What do you think is a manageable budget where people are able to, like, where can people get their ad budget to with this type of process, and also before it starts to erode away, but also what's the strategy for increasing budget?
No, that's a great question. And to be honest, so there's two metrics when it comes to low ticket offers. There's two metrics that actually will tell you how much you can spend on any given offer, right? And one of them is called average order value or average cart value. It's really hard. This is where a lot of people, like, they come to me because it's like, oh, my low ticket offer is working, but I'm spending $50 to get a buyer and I'm only selling this $17 thing. And then it's like, okay, that's great, but you are running an incomplete funnel, right? It's like trying to race, you know, with Ferraris and everything, and then your car has only one wheel. It should have, you know, when it should have the four wheels. So what you need to do on that point, and generally, for example, I have this product called the Rapid Scale Framework, right? I've been running it for 18 months or close to 2 years. It's been doing great. It's my #1 seller and whatnot. It's a $5 product. And it costs me anywhere between $20 to $30 to get a buyer, right? For a $5 product, if I only had that $5 product there, then I would be losing money every time I get a purchaser, right? But then I have some other offers in the funnel, again, an order bump, an upsell, all of those things, that allow me to liquidate and allow me to increase that metric, which is the average cart value. On average, how much is a person spending with your funnel at that point, right? So that's the one metric that I always look at. The other metric that I look at is how much am I paying to acquire a buyer? Because if you think about it, if you're paying $30 to acquire a buyer, and then you're making $40 on average, right? Some people will just take that front-end offer. Some people will take the front-end offer and a couple bumps. Some people will take the entire funnel, and it's sweet when somebody comes from a $5 offer and they spend $500 on your funnel. You experience that too, right? It's amazing. Yeah. It's really sweet. And then it's really sweet to, you know, wake up to all of these buyers every single day, right? That they're coming in, people that do not know who you are. It's amazing, right? It's an amazing feeling once you get there. But when you look at these two metrics, your average cart value, if it's higher than what you're paying to acquire a buyer, then you can scale, right? Because we know on the meta advertising world and even on Google too, the more you scale your ads, generally your cost to acquire a buyer will go up, because now you're targeting colder and colder audiences, right? You're asking for more buyers from the platform. So that means people that might not be ready to buy right now, maybe in a couple of weeks. So you end up paying more per buyer, right? So that's kind of the balance. Cart value versus cost to acquire a customer, CPA, however you want to call it, right? So if everything lines up, which it rarely does out of the gate, right? It rarely does out of the gate. Just a handful of offers out of everything that I've run have that, like, immediate, they start making money. Generally, winning offers, they start in the red. They start, you know, at, you're making 50 cents for every dollar that you put back, right? Which is still way better than, again, most businesses out there, because most businesses, they spend today and they make zero back, right? They need to wait. But if you're able to make your funnel better to increase your cart value, then you're off to the races. Now, when it comes to scaling, for example, I have students spending $3,000 a day and liquidating right away. I have students spending $1,500 a day. I have students spending $200 a day, and they're doing well, right? But at some point, you scale a little bit, and then you see what your funnel does. And if you have room to scale, because the goal with these offers is not to make money. I mean, they can make you money, but it's always to break even so you can actually scale. I call it the ad scaling ladder, right? So it's kind of a ladder. You scale your ads, you pay a little bit more, you see what the funnel does. Maybe you need to tweak the funnel, and that unlocks more scale so you can scale more and blah, 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 right? So you do this. It's never linear, right? You never go from $0 to $5,000 a day in, like, overnight. That doesn't happen, right? So you go that route, and then you scale. I like people to scale for sure rather than to scale too fast, and then they get burned out because now they're losing money, right? So again, it's all a matter of pacing yourself, and it's all a matter of I'm going to scale it, say 20% my ads or my ad spend every 48 to 72 hours. That's generally a healthy ratio, right? That rule has been around forever. 20% every 48 hours. You can do that, and that gives Meta good like breathing room to recalculate all of this stuff. We need to understand that there's a lot that's happening behind the scenes, right? When we are asking Meta for purchases, so we need the algorithm to have that breathing room. But 20% every 48 hours is generally a good scaling rule that I teach everyone. But it all hinges on how much you're liquidating, how much money each customer is worth to you immediately, so that you can actually scale your ads. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you've laid everything out, I think, in a really good and clear way. I think the one thing that is worth clarifying, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, is that I think, let's say you can get all these bits working properly, you've got a funnel that's at break even. I think the final piece where I see people have a lot of misunderstanding is that just because the person has purchased your low ticket product doesn't mean they're going to buy anything on your back end. We're not expecting everyone to come in and buy something on the back end. And even the people who do, they're going to convert in those different pockets. So some of them will be immediately. You've obviously mentioned that buyer who comes in and buys the whole funnel. Everyone loves that on a Sunday afternoon, and you can almost guarantee they're going to book a sales call and they're probably going further. They're that type A buyer. But it's looking at these people and understanding that some of these people are never going to buy. Some of them are unfortunately going to be the types of people that if you've got a money back guarantee, they're going to have magically consumed your product within 5 minutes and asked for their money back. And that's a part of business and part of the process, as long as that's below a certain rate. And I think that scares a lot of people. But yeah, I think that thought of, I don't know if you have any kind of metrics that you work towards on the back end piece of, if you had 100 buyers come in on the front, what percentage do you expect to do something on the back? And is there any kind of time frame from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the time frame, well, because after this low ticket process, then your real sales process starts, right? However that looks like. Maybe you need to hop on the phone with people. I have clients doing that we actually had to pivot from, let's say, a straight to book an appointment type of approach for a high ticket offer, right? There's a lot of businesses that have been kind of struggling with that model, and we switched them to a low ticket offer that offers the exact same thing on the back end, right? After somebody goes through the process, they can book a call with their team, and all of a sudden their math flips around, because again, they're liquidating a lot of that ad spend before they even get to pitch that back end sale, right? So I see a lot of businesses kind of migrating, mostly because of the cost to acquire a customer, right? We could get, I don't know, phone calls for $150, $80 all day long, but now it's costing us, if you run straight to an appointment setting type of deal, maybe it costs us $300, $400, $500. I have a client paying $1,000 per booked appointment, and it works for them, but it's not as profitable as it used to be, right? So I think that benchmarks generally, I like anywhere between 7 to 10% of my front-end buyers to take that next step, whatever that next step might be. Maybe it is booking a call with your team. Maybe it is watching a presentation, a webinar. I have a client that we actually switched. We were running traffic directly to a webinar, and we actually switched that to selling a book first, and then everyone gets invited to the webinar, and it's way more profitable that way. So around 7 to 10%. And then let's say that you hop on a call with 10 buyers out of 100, then at that point you might close 30%. So it's anywhere between 2 to 3% of those front-end buyers that end up taking you up on that back-end offer, depending on price point and depending how good you are, on the phone and all of that, which a lot more on that department that I do. But that's basically kind of the benchmarks that we like to go after. So 10% of people will take up that next step, and then anywhere between 2 to 3% of those front-end buyers will end up buying something else right now, right? Because a lot of people will not. Humans, they do take a long time to make decisions, right? So you need to follow up with them. You need to keep on offering opportunities for them to ascend, and you might have a greater yield down the road. But in the 30-day window, when somebody comes in and they buy that first thing until they hop on a call with you, we're looking at 2 to 3% of front-end buyers. So.
Cool. I think that's helpful, and it gives people a lot of clarity. So one final question before we wrap up. if someone's watched this or listened to this podcast and they're like, this sounds really good, like I'm really interested in doing this, I think this is the shortcut I've been looking for to get these leads coming in because I hate doing outreach and I'm not very good at content, but they don't have a back end offer, they don't have any real sales experience, they're new to a marketplace, what would be your advice to somebody who they want to do ads, but what would be your advice for them today, and how do they get to that place to do ads?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say what you said at the beginning with the organic side of things, especially if you don't have a back-end offer, that's the main thing. I think that you need to figure that out first, because everything falls in line with these low-ticket offers, but you need to offer them something else, right? You need to offer them something else so that you can actually make money with this strategy, right? Because this whole strategy is set up so that you can basically or virtually advertise for as close to as free as possible, right? On some cases, it is completely free. You break even right away. On some cases, you might liquidate 80 or 90% of your overall budget, and that's okay too. But I think that you need to figure out what your back-end offer is going to be. You want to put out, ideally organic content, or you want to work with some people one-on-one first so that you can understand what those challenges are, how you can translate them into a low-ticket offer that will attract those type of people that you want to work with. So you want to put in some reps. I wouldn't suggest that you go out there and run ads. And by the way, if you're a solopreneur or if you have a small operation and whatnot, probably you don't need to run ads right away. You can actually go the organic route. You can go to communities and whatnot and become really helpful there. That's going to fill up your pipeline pretty fast, pretty quickly. But then once you're ready to scale, then these type of offers work really well. But I wouldn't suggest you start with this. I would suggest that this is kind of a stage 2 or stage 3, right? So you want to figure out what your back-end offer is going to be. And for example, you don't even need to provide something on your end. It could be a high-ticket affiliate offer, right? It could be a high-ticket that you sell a product or a service from somebody else, and then they figured all of the delivery and fulfillment out. That's also a possibility, but I think that you need to have that piece set up first before you actually build this machine that will feed that pipeline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that, in all honesty, you know what? I think that highlights just the level of honesty and transparency that you bring to this type of process, because the amount of ads guys you'd speak to and they'd be like, oh, no, you should definitely start with ads. It's your shortcut to get to where you want to get to. And it's it's that piece of, like you say, I think that there's a couple of things, isn't there? It's the piece of, you need the validation of that you have a process, etc., on the back that works. But I think it also helps you understand your marketplace. And a lot of the time, if you're not looking to scale to a certain point, like a large number, you don't necessarily need lots of ads. It gives you an idea of what budget you need and how it sits inside your ecosystem. And I think that sometimes this type of mechanism can be unfairly used to paper over the cracks of a badly crafted high ticket offer at the wrong price point. And it's if you just reworked your offer, put some teeth into it, and actually increase the price to where it should be, you would actually be full and you'd have more revenue than you know what to do with. And now you look at the low ticket piece to be okay, I'm actually going to build something completely separate that eventually feeds this, but I don't need it to feed the high ticket. And I think that's the bit of where it all comes together. I've really enjoyed the session. It's been great having you here. For anyone that's listening, what are the best ways for them to reach out to you, join your communities, do things? How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So Hernan Vazquez in all socials, so you can find me. I have a YouTube channel. I also have a school community that's free to join. I can give you the link to that. And if you want to start figuring this out for yourself, I have a book, as I mentioned, it's lowticketbook.com. It's called Low Ticket Profits, lowticketbook.com. If you want the digital version, there's also an opportunity to get the digital version here if you're not in the US. Or you can go to Amazon. You can go to Amazon and search for Low Ticket Profits, and that's going to pop up. And I think that that's the next step, because it's kind of a field manual. It's a little book, it's a field manual of all of the benchmarks that kind of condense all of this information in, a book that you can sit and read in an afternoon, in a couple of hours. And, people seem to be having good success with that. So I would say that.
Perfect. I will make sure all of it is linked underneath. If you are brand new to the world and you're looking to do outreach, be sure to download the DM to Deals book, or you can go to Amazon and buy that at the same time. It's been great having you, Hernan. We'll link everything below. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to this on any of the major podcast platforms, please be sure to leave us a review. It really helps. It's been a pleasure, Hernan, and I'll see everyone else soon.
Bye, everybody.